Wee! Hey guys, my name is Victoria, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm filming the mid-year freakout book tag. It's a really weird name, in my opinion. I laid in bed, I think 2 days ago, and I realized, oh my god, it's June. Half of the year is almost done. It's time to look into the books that we've read so far, that I've read so far. I will not go into too much detail about like all the books that I read. I'm going to simply tell you how many books I read so far, which is not as many as last year, but that was pretty predictable considering that I've been in a huge reading slump for months. Yeah, and then we're going to answer the question. I'm gonna leave them down below in case you want to answer them. I'm going to start right away, oops, because you know that I like to talk. I just wanted to say that I like to talk my ass off, but that doesn't make any sense. Okay, let's get into the basic info first. So let's see how many books I've read so far. So far in 2022, I've read 34 books, which is I think a bit more than half of the books I read last year at this time. I was really committed last year, but I also had much more time on my hands. So now with university, me being in a reading slump, I think it's a good number, and I think my goal for this year was 50 books. So I'm going great, and now I have actually a lot of motivation to continue reading. I've read apparently 11,331 pages, but I can tell you that I think I only read like a handful of books with a physical copy. So I listened to a lot of books this year because I love spending my time with audiobooks. I have a huge problem with concentrating. That's been the case for like the last few months. Found out that I most likely have ADHD, so it does make sense. I don't know why these don't do what I want. So yeah, I listened to most of the books that I read. Most books I read this year were emotional, dark, and mysterious. Ooh. I read 19 books that were emotional. I mostly read medium-paced books containing 300 to 499 pages, and my top genre is young adult with 15 books. And the second one is LGBT, which I love, and this third one is romance. Wow. I have a lot of plans for the second half of the year. I also realized that a lot of the books that are on my TBR for 2022 have not been touched, have not been read. Mostly, as I said, because I listen to most of the books and I listen to them on BookBeat, and BookBeat does not have every single book that I want to read, which is normal. But that also makes me even more excited for the second half of the year. Now, let's answer the question. I think that's all I'm gonna say to the statistic thing. I don't want this video to be too long. For most of the questions, I will show you one book, but some have 2 or 3. Okay, we're starting with the first question, which is, what's the best book you've read so far? I have 2 books for that. The first one is a romance, a queer romance, and it's called Best Laid Plans by Rowan Parrish. So Best Laid Plans is about Charlie and Rye. They're both in their mid-30s. This is basically their love story. Charlie deals with lots of responsibility, being responsible for his father's shop, his sibling. This book also discusses other themes, not only like love and a sexual relationship, but also the relationship between Charlie and his brother. It's queer and it's lovely and it does not have the misunderstanding trope, and it's so far my favorite romance that I've read this year. And I can only recommend it because I have not heard anyone talking about this. I found this on BookBeat and I'm so glad I did. I think Charlie and Rye fit together really well. So Rye is new in town. He kind of wants to rebuild the house that he inherited and wants to do it alone, but quickly realizes that that's pretty difficult to do. So Charlie, who owns his father's, as I already said, shop, which is not a normal shop, no, it's a hardware store. And I'm gonna let you guess how they meet and everything, and I loved it. It was great. The second book that stood out to me is Woman of Endurance by, I'm totally gonna botch this name, it was so hard for me to say last time I talked about this book. It's by Dalma Llanos Fiora. I'm so bad at this. You see it on screen. I don't have the proper words to describe this book. It's set in Puerto Rico in the 19th century, and it's about Paula. She is a deeply spiritual African woman who is captured and later sold for the purpose of breeding future slaves. And I would love for everyone to read this book because it educated me in so many ways and so many things that I wasn't aware of. It's definitely a time that I was not educated on, and I'm so glad that I read this book, or rather listened to it, but huge trigger warning for this book. Please, please, please read the trigger warnings. There is discussion on a lot of things. So there's graphic content of slavery, rape, physical abuse, racism, sexual assault, violence, kidnapping, very deep grief, child abuse, child death, just to name a few. So it's a really intense book. In the end, it's not a story about a woman facing all these trials in her life and being broken. It's really about her surviving and sustaining everything that happens to her, and also being welcomed into a new community that makes it easier for her, but letting the reader know how much she still has to deal with the past trauma that she experienced. Please check out the trigger warnings if you're interested in this book, but I want to recommend it, but I can't wholeheartedly because, as I said, it can be very triggering and it's really hard stuff. But I'm so glad that I read this book, and it's, as I said, one of the best books I've read so far. Second category is best sequel you read so far. I chose Concrete Roses by Angie Thomas, which is technically a prequel to The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas. We meet Star in The Hate U Give. She's the protagonist, and she tells the story of her friend being murdered by a cop. And Concrete Roses takes you back and tells the story of Star's father, who is 17 and has to deal with money problems, suddenly being a father, and then kind of trying to cope with all of that. And I loved listening to a story. I loved Stars too, but this is the question of which sequel I liked the best so far. And if you liked The Hate U Give, you will definitely like Concrete Roses. Of course, there were some things that I did not like. As a woman, it's never nice to hear about guys talking badly about women, objectifying them. I believe the author did not mention this to hurt anyone. I believe Angie Thomas put that in the book because sadly, it's really realistic for guys to talk that way. And also seeing Maverick's, by the way, Star's father's called Maverick, also seeing his development when he goes from Concrete Roses to The Hate U Give. Definitely some things that irked me, that I did not like, but overall, a really great book about the racism people of color have to deal with, but also about a young boy trying to be an adult and facing lots of obstacles and trying to handle everything. A new release you haven't read yet but want to. I could tell you about like 20 books, but I decided to only talk about one before this video gets too long, which is Elektra by Jennifer Saint. This is her newest book, and I loved Ariadne. So this is a Greek mythology retelling. I'm so excited for this book. I so far have only heard really great things about it. So let's see the summary. If I say any Greek names wrong, I'm sorry. Most of them I learned as a German, in German. So yeah. The house of Atreus, we would say Atreus, is cursed. A bloodline tainted by a generational cycle of violence and vengeance. This is the story of three women, their fates inextricably tied to this curse, and the fickle nature of men and gods. So we talk about Clytemnestra, we talk about Cassandra, and we talk about Elektra. I'm so excited. I know a lot about Cassandra already, so Princess of Troy, but I'm so excited to learn more about the wife of Agamemnon. I love Greek mythology so much. So yeah, I'm really excited for this book. Can't wait to read it, and I plan on maybe buying it soon, I hope. I said to myself that I will buy it in a bookstore the next time I get to one. So yeah, so excited for this. I badly want to read it in summer. Summer just always gets me, I don't know, the Greek mythology retelling vibes. I don't even know. Okay, number 4 is most anticipated release for the second half of this year. First of all, chose Husband Material by Alexis Hall. I'm so excited. I read Boyfriend Material last year in April. I listened to it. That was actually the first audiobook I fully listened to on BookBeat, and I'm so excited for Husband Material. I really liked Boyfriend Material. There are some things that is just so typically romance, and I find myself really not liking it, but I will talk about it more in my June wrap-up because I have perfect examples for this. But I love the romance between the two. So it's about Luca and Oliver. I'm not going to talk too much about it now because it would be too big, but Husband Material, I think you can get where this is going. I'm so excited. I am a sucker for, I don't know why, but I'm a sucker for like marriage proposal things and marriage themed things or books, especially if it's queer people. It's really weird because I do not intend to get married myself. I do not want that kind of relationship. And I'm also a child of divorce. but I love this topic. I don't know, I'm just really excited. I'm excited to know where this is going, and the dynamic between Oliver and Luke was really, really fun. So I'm excited for that. And the second one is the final and third installment of the can you call it installment? Whatever. The Last Hours trilogy by Cassandra Clare, which is a prequel to The Mortal Instruments and a sequel to The Infernal Devices. It's weird. And I still have to read Chain of Iron. I know. I have not read that yet. I plan on doing it before November, before this gets released. Chain of Thorns, which the cover was released recently. I love the light hair with the green dress. Oh my god, I'm so excited. And I'm scared because these books, trilogies, tend to not have the nicest endings. Or if they have a nice ending, people will die. And I'm so scared of that. But anyway, I'm excited for the books to come out. I don't know why I talk like this. It's so weird. Okay, let's continue. The biggest disappointment of this year. As I told you, because I have not read that many books that I really, really badly wanted to read this year, which is weird, I know. The days just fly by and suddenly we have June. I could barely find a biggest disappointment. But maybe we'll talk about it at the end of this year. But a book that I found pretty disappointing was She's Too Pretty to Burn by Wendy Hurd. It was a romance between two girls, and Veronica and Mick? I talked about this in my April wrap-up, and I just did not see the chemistry. I could not feel their romance. I could not root for them. The other part of the book, which is like all about activism and extreme activism, especially for the climate crisis, I just did not like the message that it portrayed or that it showed, and yeah, I had all kinds of problems with this book. And honestly, guys, I need good recommendations for good sapphic novels where I really feel the chemistry, where I feel like, oh my god, these two girls, these two women belong together. So yeah, I did not like this book at all, and it's really sad. I'm always on the lookout for good sapphic novels, and I have found many that I really liked, but I definitely have read more Achillean, so Men Loving Men books, and I gotta change that. And a lot of people said that it was good, and I could not feel their love at all. Biggest surprise, I chose Other Words from Home by Jasmine Warga. Warga? Sorry if I said this wrong. This book is about Jude, and she is forced to leave her home country, Syria, and move all the way across the ocean to America to start a new life there. And we experience her obstacles with the language barrier, but also the connection she starts to have with other people, which is so nice to listen to. But it's a really hard topic, and I listened to this right at the beginning of the Ukrainian war. So again, being confronted with the pictures of people leaving the country because their home is not safe anymore. It's just unbelievable and incredible, and suddenly what's happening. I loved listening to this book, and it was a huge surprise how well you were able to not relate to her, because I don't think I could ever relate to her because I don't have to go through this, but empathize with her, with Jude going through all these changes and adjusting to everything. In the end, it was an uplifting story that has such a terrible reason, I guess. I cannot really explain it well. I hope you get what I'm saying. So I love this book. Highly recommended. Very important topic. Number 7 is new favorite author, or newest favorite author. I have read their books last year already, many actually, but I did not count her as one of my favorite authors. But now I can say Alice Oseman. I love them. I'm not a huge fan of the way they write. I am just a fan of like very poetic, flowery language with lots of metaphors and imagery. But the stories that she tells with her books, with Heartstopper, with Loveless, and Nick and Charlie I've read, and Solitaire, I believe that Alice is really good at telling stories about young people, about teenagers, about very young adults, because they are young. But I have read books or novels that are set in high school, and I'm like, young people don't talk like that. This is horrible, and it's like, I can't listen to this. But I believe Alice has just found a way to make it nice and lovely and cute and realistic, I believe. And also the amount of representation they put in their books. I just love it. I love them. I can't wait to see what else she's going to do and going to create. And yeah, I love Alice Oseman. We arrived at number 8. which is gonna be a quick one. And it's about my newest fictional crush. I don't have a newest fictional crush. I don't really get fictional crushes. Most of the time, I'm just a huge fan. If there's a love story of the love story, yeah, that's it. I don't really have a crush. Number 9 is newest favorite character, which was a bit difficult, but I found that I really, really like Oliver from You've Reached Sam by Dustin Tao. And I will not talk too much about it. It was one of the books I actually read in a physical form, and I really liked the book. But Sam's best friend, because sadly Sam passed away, he got into an accident, and this book is all about grief and mourning and healing, and also not being ready to heal yet. And I loved the discussion of the book. But Oliver is Sam's best friend, and I loved the moments where he was in the book. In the beginning you're like, who is this guy? He's so annoying, stop it, you're being invasive. But he's just such a sweetheart. I really, really like him, and if I could ask for a book by Dustin Tao, it would be a book about Oliver and his continuing story, because I really, really liked him. Number 10 is a book that made you cry, just as we talked about, You've Reached Sam by Dustin Tao. I was a bit disappointed, not talking about the content of the book, but in ways of I saw so many people sobbing over this book, and I did not cry until the last like 5 pages when I put myself in the shoes of the main character, and that's when it got really, really hard, and that's when I started crying. But I did not cry as much as I expected to, but I still cried, so I think that works. And of course, my reread of Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare. Yeah, I will not talk about the epilogue. I could not tell you that much about it now, because it would spoil a lot of things. But it's the Shadowhunters universe, and yeah, the ending is just horrible. I was sitting on the balcony and cried my eyes out. Let's talk about books that made you happy. One of them is really weird, but the first one is Heartstopper. Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. I have the 2nd volume. I think I read all 4 volumes online. So, you know, just reading this graphic novel is just, I love it. So much serotonin. I immediately felt better, except when we go to like volume 3 and volume 4, because there are some topics that are discussed that are really, really sad. But yeah, I've read volume 2, and it's just, so much happiness. I love it. The second one is really weird, but I chose Macbeth by William Shakespeare. A play that is all about Macbeth killing people to become king, his wife going crazy and mad. But I loved this book. When we discussed it in class, I was smiling the entire time like a maniac, because I love discussing it. It's my favorite Shakespeare play so far. I love it so much. And yeah, it's a tragedy that made me happy. No, it's all about the topics that are in this book, the metaphors that were made, that we just briefly talked about, but yeah, I loved it so much. The last one is also a bit surprising, because it's a straight romance. No, it's Romancing Mr. Bridgeton by Julia Quinn. I'm aware of the weirdness of all these books. That's, by the way, the 3rd part book in the Bridgerton series. As you might have guessed, I'm a huge fan of the show. This is the book about Penelope's and Colin's love story, and that's my favorite in the show. I love Nicola, I love Luke, the actors portraying these characters, and I can't wait for season 3. By the way, I'm wrong. This is book 4, not book 3. I'm confusing it because season 3 will be about Penelope and Colin, and if there's a season 4, which I do not doubt there will be, that will be about Benedict, because book 3 is actually about Benedict. Anyway, I know a lot of fans were really disappointed when they heard that season 3 is not going to be about Benedict's love story, but they've been teasing Colin and Penelope for 2 seasons, ever since the 1st episode, and I think it's really natural that they're doing them now. And I'm so excited. I'm ready to give them all my love, and I hope everyone will do that. As I said, I know the books have lots of problems. I'm done. Like, I'm not gonna listen to all the other books. I just wanted to listen to their love story, and I liked it. I liked it a lot. I loved their relationship, and I'm not gonna tell you too much about it, because I don't know why. I really liked it, probably because I love Penelope so much. Like, she's this wallflower who like conceals a big secret, and she loves Colin, has always loved him, but you know, is unrequited. Yeah, I love it. I love it. I don't know why. It made me happy. And I listened to it in a matter of like 1 day. That's how fast I listened to it. Okay, number 12 is favorite book to movie adaptation. It's gotta be Normal People because I have not actually watched that many. I think. I don't think I watched a lot of new like adaptations of books that I've read this year. I have read Normal People last year in November and reread it in January. And I liked it, surprisingly. While reading the premise of the story, I was not interested at all. It won't be part of my favorite books ever, but it was surprisingly good for the short essay that I had to write on it. And I binged the series, which I think was released on Hulu. I do not have Hulu, but anyway, I binged the series and I was really happy with the portrayal. There were some things that were different, obviously, that comes naturally, but I think it was a really well done adaptation. And if you liked the book, I can only recommend the show. I thought it was really well done. 13. Most beautiful book you bought this year. I bought this last year in November, or I bought these last year in November, but I received them in January, so I'm gonna count that as fitting. The special editions by Illumicrate of The Song of Achilles and Cersei. I'm gonna give you close-ups. I just can't. These are my favorite colors, like gold and dark green. They couldn't have been more perfect, and I needed to have them. I needed to have them. They have such a huge value for me now. And as I am a book collector, and yes, I do already own these books, I don't care. I remember the day buying them. There was so much traffic on the site. So many people wanted these, and I was able to get them. They're signed. Just saying. And some of the cloth-bound classics that I received for my birthday. I'm gonna give you some close-ups, but I have not bought these myself, so I do not know if they count. Oh, but one of them I can actually show you. A book that I saw, which I thought was beautiful. And it's this book. And it's The Naked Don't Fear the Water by Matthew, I'm not sure, Akins. And this is the story of an underground journey with Afghan refugees. Something I would normally not go for, but I read the summary and I saw this book and it spoke to me. I had to have it, and I think it's so beautiful. Sorry for the dog hair. Okay, and the last question is, what books do you really need to read by the end of this year? As I said, I could tell you about like 20 books, but I chose 2. The first one is If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. I only so far have heard very good things about it. Can't wait to read it, but I want to watch some more Shakespeare plays and learn more about him before I read this book to understand the references, because I love Shakespeare and I love references when I understand them. So that's the reason why I have not read it yet. And a book that I wanted to read for over a year, which is Cersei by Madeline Miller. Yes, I now have a really pretty edition. I have it twice and I have not even read it. I don't care. I badly want to read it. And I think it's gonna be a summer book for me as well. And this was it. This was the mid-year freakout book tag. And yeah, before this outro gets too long and to really finish it, I'm just gonna end this video here on this note. Hope you liked it, and if you did, please give me a thumbs up and comment down below what you would like to see next. Answer the questions down below if you want to. I will, as I said, put them in my description box and would love to hear your answers to all the questions. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet, and don't forget to click the little bell next to the subscription button to never miss an upload. I try uploading twice a week on Thursdays and Sundays, but I will update you guys on everything on my Instagram, and if you want to follow my poetry account. All of my social media is linked down below, including the links connected to the war happening in Ukraine. If you want to donate or educate yourself on it, I put some reliable sources down below, and if you have any, please leave them in the comments. Sorry about my dog barking. I hope I was able to edit out most of it. She's been doing it for the past 20 minutes. Anyway, this is it. Yay! This was fun, and I was so excited for the second half of this year. And if you want to watch my huge wrap up at the end of this year, make sure to subscribe and stay. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll hopefully see you in my next video. Bye! Oh my god. But Oliver is best. But Oliver is Olive. But Oliver is. Oh my god. So let's go into more. This is the story of three. Oh my god. Stay. Be pretty. This is the story of three women. And we Mamira als Maul. Oh yeah, you finished it. Woohoo!